Live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley, it's the show that asks the important questions like, did the Minnesota Timberwolves actually win the Rudy Gobert trade? I'm not sure what you think about that, but I can tell you that this Minnesota Timberwolves team is officially for real. We've got that plus the return of Ja Morant's greatness to the hardwood courts and Zion's struggles. Like if you were in Britain, you might use the term carry on. I've got all of that and a whole lot more coming up on the big House of Takes NBA show. As always, I am Dave DeBaugh coming to you, as I mentioned, from the heart of the Silicon Valley. Now, there is a lot to cover on today's show. I am fighting a bit of a cold, so bear with me, but I'm sure we'll get through this. I wanted to start today's show out by talking specifically about the Rudy Gobert trade. Now, at the time when this trade was made, let's face it, the majority of the people in the media, including myself, and I must admit, I'm actually a Los Angeles Laker fan and a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. A story for another day. That being said, when this trade was made, a lot of us thought that this trade was not a good trade for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, forget about what they actually gave up. Because as we sit here, some basically 18 months after the trade, Minnesota Timberwolves are leading the NBA with a 20-5 record. Now, I know we are just sitting here in December, so we probably need to hold our horses a little bit on the Timberwolves having the chance of actually raising a NBA championship banner. That's crazy. That is just going too far, especially with how good some of the other teams are currently playing in the association and will play when we actually hit the playoffs. But as it stands today, as we sit here with Chris Finch, the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, who should be the leading candidate in the association for the coach of the year. Like if the season ended tomorrow, Chris Finch should win coach of the year because the task of making Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, and Anthony Edwards all work together is a task that is difficult. Now, look, if the Detroit Pistons were somehow playing better than they're actually playing, that would be a different story. But Detroit is a terrible basketball team. And no matter what Monty Williams does, it doesn't appear to be working. The T-Wolves under Chris Finch have historically been a team that has been better than 500, which you can't say for a lot of the other former coaches with the Timberwolves. As for the way and the changes that the T-Wolves have put into place, it is pretty significant when you look at it. And that's why I actually say that Chris Finch probably, if the season ended today, would be the leading candidate for the coach of the year. He has shifted the way the T-Wolves play defense. He is less reliant on what Rudy Gobert is actually comfortable with. He's actually running a defensive scheme that works not just for Rudy, but works for the other players on the team. Look, this is not an easy thing to do. Now, I don't know what you do during your daily lives, but if you're in business, one of the most important things that you can do, especially if you're in a leadership role, is to get everybody heading in the same direction. As for the Timberwolves last year, it was clear that that had not happened yet. But with an offseason, Rudy Gobert coming in good shape, and Chris Finch having a chance to actually put a scheme in that he believed would work for everybody, has actually benefited, quite frankly, everyone in the Minnesota Timberwolves organization. So, are the Minnesota Timberwolves for real? Yes, absolutely. Now, injuries happen in the association. You can't expect them to continue to win at the pace that they're currently winning at. I mean, for God's sakes, they play the Philadelphia 76ers tonight in Philadelphia. You'll probably be watching this video after the Philadelphia 76ers beat the T Wolves. But the T Wolves are absolutely for real. And if you subscribe to the NBA package, I highly recommend you go back and watch the fourth quarter of the Miami Heat Minnesota Timberwolves game. Absolutely fabulous by both teams. Moving on to our second topic of the day, and we'll get into Zion's struggles here in just a little bit, but Ja Morant is back in the association. Now, Ja Morant scored 34 points in his first game out. Now, if you go look at the box score of this particular game, and I'm pulling that up right now, Ja Morant played a whopping 35 minutes in his return. Now, if we were to compare that to Zion Williamson, Zion played 25 minutes and scored 13 points, and he's been not suspended by the NBA for 25 games. He's had plenty of time to warm up. The return of Ja Morant's greatness is certainly going to help the Memphis Grizzlies out, of course, greatly. They are currently, after last night's win, 7-19. Do they have enough talent on this particular roster to actually find a way to sneak into the play in and then find a way to actually sneak in to the NBA playoffs? As we sit here, basically a little over a quarter of the way through the association season, it is certainly possible, and to some degree probable, if Ja Morant can stay healthy and they can get back a lot of their other players who currently aren't available. If they can do that, then they certainly have a chance of making the playoffs. Just remember last year how good the Pelicans were early in the season and completely fell off. Remember how bad the Los Angeles Lakers were and how they actually improved significantly as the season went on. In fact, the Lakers in the second half of the season had one of the best records in the association after starting the season out at 2-10. So, with another three quarters of this association season still to go, if Ja Morant can stay healthy, they can get some of their other players back. I think it's certainly a possibility that this Grizzlies team could be dangerous if they were able to actually find their way into the playoffs. All right. Our final topic of the day. I was having a little fun. One of my kids actually goes to the University of London. Hence, my is Zion Williamson's problems, struggles. Basically, are they continuing to carry on? Hence the British reference. And the answer to that question, if you just look at his last five games, and I'm going to go ahead and pull these stats up. If you just look at his last five games, 13 points, 15 points, 21 against the Hornets, a did not play, 36 against the Timberwolves, and 13 against the Lakers, and 10 against the Kings. Now, if you look at Zion Williamson's minutes, that's where the points actually come from. It's like in the National Football League, a running back who gets stronger as the game goes on is actually going to do the majority of their damage in the third and fourth quarter of the game. Zion Williamson, in his last two games, where he scored 13 and 15 points, played 25 and 26 minutes respectfully. Look, if Zion's actually going to score over 20 points a game and have those games where he scores more than 30, he's actually going to need more time on the court. The New Orleans Pelicans absolutely have a deep rotation, which is one of the reasons why Zion is why they're able to not play Zion for the same period of time. But when you look at the job that like a Brandon Ingram is doing, he played 37 minutes last night. um, Valanciunas played 33 minutes last night. CJ McCollum played 41 minutes last night. Zion Williamson only played 25. And that there is the struggle that Zion is actually having. His shooting percentage is great. So you can, and of course, the way he plays basketball is, near the rim. So of course his shooting percentage is going to be good. The problem is he's not able to play enough minutes to actually put up the bigger numbers. And the bigger numbers are what the Pels are actually going to need if they're going to do any damage. Just think about this. Like if the Pelicans are in the playoffs, do you think they're only going to play Zion between 20 and 25 minutes a game? Or are they going to have to stretch Zion's minutes out to Brandon Ingram levels and CJ McCollum levels? If the Pelicans want to win, they're going to have to do that because as strong as their bench is not Zion Williamson's talent. So the struggles that we see are partially due to the coaching staff, and they're also due to Zion's health and Zion's fitness and all of those things that have been certainly well documented to this point. But what do you think the Pels should do with Zion right now? Should they sit here and allow Zion to continue to play less minutes than all the other stars on their team? Or should they try to work him back into shape and have him play more minutes? If I were the Pels, what I would do is I would actually slowly but surely ratchet his minutes up. I would get him between 30 and 35 minutes every night, and I'd get him back in shape that way. The disinterest that Zion Williamson actually shows on the court, I think will absolutely go away if they force him to actually play more minutes. All right. That is it for today's episode of the House of Takes NBA show. Let me know what you think. Drop your comments in. And of course, I'm supposed to like the show and subscribe. For the House of Takes NBA show, as always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, coming to you live and on tape from the heart of the Silicon Valley. Look, I wish you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing. Yeah.